Right, a couple of bits I want to talk about today, and one is a revision of colour mixing, so basic colour mixing, which I'll go on to in a minute. So it's my same old one that I do year after year, and hope it's made some difference over the years. And for some people it'll be relatively new. So I'll do a little bit of that in a minute. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was just keeping sketchbooks, which I know some of you do. And has anybody brought sketchbooks in? Yep, so a couple of you have, that's great. Sue's got some lovely sketchbooks, just been looking at Sue's a minute ago. And then if others of you have got sketchbooks. I brought a collection of mine in. I've really kept sketchbooks, I don't know, I can remember always having sketchbooks on and off really. Some of these date back to art school, one or two of them, I'm not sure quite where they are. That one's started at art school back in the 1980s. And then I sort of filled it otherwise.
Oh, we didn't know he was that old.
Sorry?
We didn't know he was that old.
Yeah. About 40 years since I left college. I tend to use all sorts of sketchbooks, different sizes. I particularly like these sort of brown ones, as you know. I've been using these for quite a few years. And these just kind of fit nicely in my little bag there, so it's a really nice kind of go-to sketchbook that, you know, lives in the bag. Keep a few pens in the bag. So that's what I tend to use. And I talked a little bit last week about the mediums I use, the pens and things like that. So it's usually pens or watercolours or something like that. That's that sort of thing. A4 size I quite like. I like this size. I like these ring bound ones because I can kind of fold it around and just hold it like that. Stand up sketch. Quite often do just stand up sketching. Keep a few pens in one hand and sketch with the other. So that works quite well. More recently, I've started using these smaller ones. This is I think this one I got given, so it's quite a soft back one. The only problem with these is they're a little bit floppy, they've got a lot of resistance, but they are nice and lightweight. So I like these smaller ones for if I'm going out painting, I've got all my painting gear, I don't want anything too heavy to carry around to sketch with. So these are good for quick sketches on the tube or the train or wherever it happens to be. They're really nice, sort of lightweight. Did have an experiment with black, so that's quite interesting. It's always nice to try different papers, different kinds of colours. So that's that. So this sort of size is a really nice one if you just want to go keep in your pocket. You know, that would be a nice pocket one. Can work, and this paper is thick enough to do little watercolours with. So this sort of thing, I could just take a little watercolour box with me. These ones, they're rounded corners, so they're really designed for going in your pocket and you know, just being out and about. And you've got these little bits of elastic to keep the pages flat. So they're nice. Could go with different shapes, so square. I've experimented over the years. Square ones, sometimes very long, thin ones. This one's a water. This is one that my son made me. So you can actually make books, your sketchbooks yourself if you wanted to. Not used this a great deal, but this is more of a watercolour sketchbook. So that was a kind of quick sketch through a window of a roadway. So yeah, all sorts of different types of books, shape sizes, and it's really would encourage you all to keep sketchbooks. It's a great place to just experiment, just kind of hone your observational skills really. So yeah, do have a look if you want to have a look for any of these. And Sue's brought hers and one two others of you. So it's quite nice to just kind of share. So all good on that? Yep.
What's the benefit over a camera?
What's the benefit? Well, you're looking at the subject, you're practicing your drawing skills. I can't get that excited about cameras, I'm afraid. It's just one of those things. It's drawing. It's you know, a real opportunity to just explore visually. I think memory-wise, I mean, some of these ones, I remember that, you know, I probably have got photos of these places, but this just takes me straight back to, you know, I remember this one's Spain. That was my friend Martin back at college. another friend Catherine. That was a kind of Easter festival in Spain, and it just you know, I can look at these sketches and just go straight back. So to me, they have more kind of psychological impact for me than a camera. And it's all the joy of painting and drawing, but just on a small scale, very instant, very quick. I don't feel precious about what I do in the sketchbook. I don't feel like I have to finish it. It can be a very quick scribble, or it can be something that's, you know, something like that might have taken me an hour or so, a little sketch of the interior. So yeah, it's just a great place to just explore visual ideas.
My problem is I can't visualise things, so I have to have the copy there. So you're doing those quickly, so a lot of it is knowledge of the subject you're doing, isn't it?
Well, I'm just looking at, so these, I think pretty much all of these I've done from life. That's my dining room. So I just stood there.
You've done it and gone. You've not sat there a couple of hours and done it.
Yeah. I just most of my drawings are things I see around. Sometimes I use photos, but you know, it's just out and about. So that was actually a drawing for a painting. Somebody commissioned me to do a painting of Westcliff, and just trying to work out how much to include, what shape I would want the painting to be.
Yeah,
so it's almost like a blueprint. You know, it's like doing the design. You know, getting a rough idea, visualisation of what the painting might look like. So it's like planning what you want to do. So I think maybe, have you always worked from photographs?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's.
I get a sketchbook out and I try to draw something, and I look at the telly or something and see a picture or something, and I start to draw it, and it's just not there. You know, if I've got the picture in front of me like I do here, then I can measure it out.
Yeah. Well, I guess you don't have to just draw from pictures. You can look at things. You can look at the world around you. That kind of came first. And photography is quite a more modern thing, really, whereas artists just kind of looked at a leaf and drew a leaf shape. So it's really to hone your observation, or can be to hone your observational skills.
Even that, they call you keep your camera next to the TV. When you see something you like come up, you get yourself ready and take a quick snap.
You could do that, or just sketch it. I mean, Sue's got some fantastic sketchbooks here that she brought in, and I would really urge you to have a look. And it's just, you know, going back to
Faces up, because you get the same pose comes back every so often.
Yeah. So anything and everything. You could work from photos, but you can just work from.
What I saw on the television, they said, draw, you say a cow.
Yeah.
And you don't take cow around, so you draw a cow, then you get a picture of a cow, and you draw it, and it's completely different.
Right, yeah.
See, that's what I'm stuck for. I can't, I've got no imagination
But if you put an object in front of you, you could have a look at the object, you could try and draw that.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be a good thing to, you know, to stretch yourself, go in a different direction, try something else.
Yeah, I'll have to do that.
So, yeah, that's a little bit on sketchbooks. The other reason I sort of brought this up is, you know, hopefully at some point I'll do a couple of sessions outdoors, and if any of you want to join us, a sketchbook is a brilliant place to start. So just sort of, you know, have a sketchbook and just draw. It's really minimal equipment to carry around. All good so far? Yep. Good. So colour mixing. So a lot of you will have heard me talk about this before. So I've got, if any of you would like one of these blank colour wheels, you can then fill these in with the colours you've got. This idea of colour mixing, so I first came across this book sometime after when I first started teaching, I came across this. So I think it'd been out a little while now. I don't know if it's written maybe in the 90s. So this wasn't around when I was at college, and it's a slight development on the way colours talked about. And I find this quite a nice, more straightforward way than the way I was taught. So when I was taught colour mixing, I was taught that some colours were like warm colours and some colours were cool colours. And that can be a little bit confusing for a lot of people. And you'll find those terms written about in art books and magazines, if you look at magazines. This book talks about basically primary colours. You all okay on what primary colours are? So basically your primary colours are colours that you can't mix. So you can't mix a red, and you can't mix a yellow, can't mix a blue. They just are. They're just the colours. So they're basically a primary colour is a colour that just exists. You also have secondary colours, which are the colours that you could mix. So oranges you could mix out of reds and yellows, purples out of reds and blues, and greens out of blues and yellows. So they're secondary colours. So the way the book talks about the primary colours is that each of the primary colours will have a slight bias towards one of the secondary colours. So if we're looking at yellows, for instance, you might have a yellow that's a slightly orangey yellow, and then you might also have a yellow that's a slightly greeny yellow. So that's quite a good way of identifying the colours. And the same would apply to blues. A lot of blues are greeny blues. So if you've got 3 or 4 blues in your paint box, the chances are that most of them will be greeny blues, and then you probably have something like ultramarine blue that's quite a purpley blue. So that's how the blues operate. The reds can be slightly orangey reds or slightly purpley reds, and it's a really useful way of thinking about colour, I find. So when I'm teaching colour mixing or beginners colour mixing, I would encourage you to just paint with these colours, maybe a little bit of white as well. And if you're using acrylics or gouache or oils, and just see how many colours you could mix out of these. You're not going to be able to get everything, but you'll be able to mix an awful lot out of just these. What I usually encourage people to do is to create some paint charts themselves. So I've got a few here. So that would be a range of orangey colours. So basically using reds and yellows. This being the brightest, so using an orangey yellow and an orangey red, that will give you the brightest range of oranges. If you went to the purpley red and the greeny yellow, you get some that are slightly duller. So that might be slightly duller up in there. It's probably more apparent with the green. So a really bright range of greens would be greeny yellow and greeny blue. And that'll give you a really strong range of greens. If you want something that's a little bit more earthy or slightly duller, slightly desaturated, you could go for an orangey yellow and a purpley blue, and that'll give you that range. So it's a really good place to start. Again, 1 or 2 of you I know struggle with colour mixing. This is a really good place to start, to actually just make some charts for yourselves and give yourselves a range of different colour mixes. So this one would be purples. And you can see that's quite a nice strong range of purples. This one almost goes brown rather than purple. So you're going from an orangey red and a greeny blue, and you get something more like brown than purple in that instance. So that's, that will show you the differences. So as I say, those of you that are struggling a little bit of colour mixing, try just using less and seeing what you can create. So for instance, if I went with that nice bright green, a lemon yellow, which is a greeny yellow, and a tiny bit of a greeny blue, like you can either use cerulean or phthalo blue. Just try phthalo in this instance. And then you get a really nice bright sort of green. Yeah. If I wanted it a little bit darker or stronger, I could add a little bit more of the phthalo. Again, just as intense a green. So that's just adding a bit more blue. If I wanted something, as I say, the softer one, I could use the orangey yellow and a little bit of ultramarine. so not too much of that in. But yeah, if I wanted a slightly more earthy, softer green, that's the sort of colours that I would need to mix. Again, add a little bit more blue. It will go darker, but it won't be quite, it will be sort of going towards sort of browns really. And again, if I then added a little bit of red in there, it will go brown. That's more like brown. So again, mixing green, add what's opposite on the colour wheel, and you'll get something more like a brown. So again, those all would be useful landscape painting. You know, if we were going out sketching, I'm sure you'd see some of those, perhaps not that one, but those, you'd see little bits of those anywhere. If you want to mix dark colours, the darkest colour I can mix, it's not going to be as dark as black, but if I just picked up a little bit of, you know, all my dark colours, so a little bit of red and blue so far, it's got me a kind of darkish purple. So I've used the phthalo blue, which is quite a dark greeny blue, and then just a little bit of yellow, and that will turn it more like a dark brown. So that's probably about as dark as I could mix out of those. But you could, if you've got other colours, you could mix other colours to make dark. So really, when I'm painting with oils, probably that and maybe some brown and some white, and that would cover 90% of all the colours I'd want to mix. So if you're mixing the grey, you know, if I just lighten that up, and maybe a tiny bit, really grey is going to be a little bit of all the different colours, so you know, that would be a nice kind of neutral grey colour.
What was those colours, sorry?
So that's basically this dark mix.
Yeah.
So that's crimson, I think one of the blues might have been phthalo blue, and a tiny bit of yellow. And then just lighten that up, just a tiny bit more colour, just make it more
You
neutral.
never get grey, you only use white to get grey.
Sorry?
I keep on using white to get grey.
Yeah, well, I thought I'd just carry on demonstrating the watercolours, but you could add white if you want to. But, so let's add a bit of white in. That's a bit of white. So you've got the same sort of grey, but just probably a little bit more opaque.
And then Payne's grey is very bluey, isn't it?
Well, Payne's grey is black and a little bit of blue mixed
Yeah.
together, so they're the pigments.
Blue shows.
So really, with this, I guess the way I was taught to paint was not to use black.
Oh, right.
So, you know, pretty much all of my art education, yeah, occasionally I use black now, but
Yeah.
I think perhaps a lot of the painting sets, some painting sets don't usually include black, so you'd be encouraged to just mix the colours together to get a dark. What you can do, say I wanted something black but didn't use black, I probably could use a very dark green and dark red. See how that goes. So it's not quite black, but that's not far off. Just green and red. So that's probably
Big
black.
green and crimson then.
Yeah, just a little bit of crimson, a little bit of the green. It's quite a dark green. You basically sort of any of the dark colours mixed together will get you something almost like black. You could use brown. This particular brown doesn't seem very dark to me, so but if it needs to be that good. Yeah, certainly for watercolour, that's probably going to be as dark as you would want to go or you need to go. If you going too dark, it then becomes almost like too opaque for watercolour. But, yeah, it's good to just play around and experiment with the colours. And again, if you're not confident colour mixing, just a sheet where you're experimenting.
Paul, what would be a good basic watercolour set to begin with? For...
I would say pretty much these here are a good place to start. So like an orangey red, this is alizarin crimson, cadmium red, cadmium yellow, perhaps lemon yellow, some sort of greeny blue, like a cerulean blue or a phthalo blue, and ultramarine blue.
So a box containing those.
Yeah, yeah. If you can get a box of those, or just go to an art shop and buy individual tubes. I've got plenty of these. So if you want to take one of these, that's kind of the colours that.
Okay.
And then, I mean, sometimes your paint boxes may not be these exact colours, but if you can work out what kind of red you've got, sometimes it's difficult to tell whether the blue in the paint box is a greeny blue or a purpley blue. But once you start mixing greens with them, you'll be able to work out which one is more greeny blue, because you get a much stronger green.
Well,
So all very worthwhile. Filling out a colour wheel, making some paint charts. For any of you that are finding colour mixing a bit of a challenge.
yeah.
All good?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so and if anybody wanted to put their name on the list for the art trail, I'll just leave it in the windowsill.